And what would make Mitt Romney think he could go to this event, this conference, or this convention? It was a convention over the weekend, and think that this wasn't going to happen. I got two clips. All right, let me play them. I got two clips. The first one is when he first gets on the stage, and then the second one is him trying to talk over it. And I don't need to play the whole first one, but the second one I want to play. Here's the first one where I'm going on stage. All right.
He sounds like Richard.
Go ahead.
But I mean, it was like Goodell got up there, and Cleveland fans, of course, hate him. A lot of NFL fans hate him. And Goodell was like, "Oh yeah, bring it on." And Romney's just sitting there saying, "Thank you for booing me. Thank you."
They're just such frauds here. And listen, here he is continuing, and this is a shorter clip. It's only like 20 seconds, but here he is, just like you're saying, just trying to pretend like he's not being booed out of the damn area. I mean,
So what do you think about President Biden's first 100 days? Now, you know me as a person who says what he thinks, and I don't hide the fact that I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues. And I'm also no fan...
It just doesn't end, Robert.
No, they had to get up and beg the audience to quit booing him. I mean, this is in his home state in Utah. This is the first Mormon to run for president in the state with the most Mormons, and he's getting booed there. That's why he didn't expect it. I mean, that's why he's so disconnected. He assumed he's still a hero, and he probably has somebody like fraudster Frank giving him polls saying, "Yeah, you're loved. The way you attack Trump, that's real popular back in Utah," because that's what Frank does. Frankly, the fraudster Frank, I suspect sometimes his polls are completely fake. It's very easy to get bogus focus groups if you don't know what you're doing. And it was clear he was doing that a lot. And his ability to people don't know. I mean, he was a Ross Perot guy for a while. Then, I mean, he just goes wherever the cash is, has a little mini Oval Office in his bedroom where he pretends he's president.
He does.
Yes. The guy's just a classic loser. I got into it with him a couple of times when he faked poll results or reported false information or incorrectly reported information. We got into social media Twitter debates. But what the guy does is he gets paid by – the bigger problem isn't Frank Luntz individually. The problem is Frank Luntz symbolizes the entire political class, especially on the Republican side of the aisle, though it also infects parts of the Democrats too, because clearly they were completely sideswiped by getting crushed in the Dallas suburbs, because that was supposed to be the new Democratic future. You know, they were pre-writing their Democratic emerging majority version of Kevin Phillips' 1968 great text, emerging Republican majority, where they were saying, look, hey, particularly Dallas and Atlanta, these new suburbs were going to be permanently Democratic, number one. And number two, that they believed in things like critical race theory for their local schools to purge their kids of the sin of racism. And what they found is they got crushed. Couldn't even get someone into a runoff. Their collective, all of the Democratic candidates combined got beat by over 20 points in a district that only went for Trump by single digits.
Yep.
And then in the school board elections, they didn't just lose. NBC kind of tried to pretend, close, divided. They didn't use the word close. They said contested, divided. No, it wasn't. It was 70-30. I mean, you almost never see that in a school board election, particularly a contested one. But that's because, your Megyn Kelly types have no interest whatsoever in their kids coming home and telling daddy and mommy, hey, by the way, we're all racist and I feel bad of my skin. They have no interest in this. And they completely misgauged it, completely misjudged it. And of course, never Trumpers, endorsed some losers in that race. I think the guy finished like 4th or 5th. Maybe he finished 9th. It was something terrible. So, I mean, they have no hope. And Liz Cheney is going to regret coming up with that phrase, the big lie, because Trump already grabbed onto it. Classic Trump marketing. He's saying the big lie is that the 2020 election was the most transparent election with high integrity. That's the big lie. He's going to grab that now. And they're making it in
Biden signs. He grabbed it.
He is. And that's not going to be his phrase. And Liz Cheney may be out within a month. I mean, they should have kicked her out last time. I mean, removed her from leadership back when they had the chance to do so. But it tells you something that, she's doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, continues to attack Trump, Trumpers, Trumpists, you name it. And it attacked the policy committee, who was saying, look, we need to become a populist party in the Republican House, went out and publicly ridiculed him. I don't know what exactly she thinks she's doing. I guess she's so used to Cheney's. I mean, if there's anybody that knows about big lies, it's the Cheney family, because they've spread and sent more of them than anybody. And they spent kids to die on their big lie. But
there's nothing like being lectured about virtue from mass murderers, Robert.
Yeah, exactly. But what does she think she's doing? Because all she's doing is, it was already a problem. The Republicans underestimated the backlash. There are already fundraising issues on the party side of the aisle because more money is going to Trump people than is going to the party. They're starting to experience. I was at a Hillsdale College event last week in Tennessee, and this is your traditional Pence type Republican wing of the party. I mean, these are, generally older, well-established economically individuals who come from, probably were big Romney fans in 2012. And now it is totally flipped to the point where they're anti-Pence. I mean, I had people asking me, do you think Pence did this deliberately? Did he lie deliberately? Was this corruption overtly? And I was like, wow, the Republican Party has no idea how clueless. I mean, I was in Southern Utah a couple of months ago. And we talked on here about, hey, what I saw there, Romney's in trouble. A lot of people are in trouble, and they don't know it. But Liz Cheney is so clueless, so out of touch, that she seems to think that this is a way for her to become a presidential candidate in 2024. They are probably in a month going to kick her out of leadership. They're going to correct that mistake because she's antagonizing everybody.
They're leaking to Axios. They're leaking to Politico. Just for people who don't know what we're talking about, she is at they now are starting, I think, to realize what they've done here. Frank Luntz's fake polls be damned and focus groups be damned. I mean, they're starting to realize it, and they're to the point where they're leaking to the establishment media in D.C., which they usually go to take out conservatives, which is what's so funny about this. Yeah. But instead, they're leaking to take out someone who is widely viewed to be an establishment Republican, right? And they're saying that soon we're going to have to strip her of her committee assignments and for leadership roles. I mean, she's dead on. I don't even think she could survive the primary. She's done. She's finished. Right.
I mean, I think she really thought this was her great opportunity to be seen as the anti-Trump, and that she would win in 2024 as the anti-Trump presidential candidate, and not realizing that. The party learned quickly when Mitch McConnell went from saying, hey, maybe everybody can vote for impeachment, to tucking his tail between his legs and not voting for impeachment himself. It was a sign that he realized his effort had failed. His gamble had backfired. And so that and that's the case with across the board. More and more of the institutional Republican Party has seen from fundraising, has seen when they go back home, has seen what they're getting in social media, in the court of public opinion. That Trumpism is the future of the party, whatever role Trump may play in it, and that there is no Bush. The Bush wing is dead. It's gone. It's finished.
Never coming back. Never coming. And, to circle back, because, this is a post-Trump era here. So to circle back, though, what people should take away, because it's something Donald Trump shined a spotlight on, and that's why so many people did vote for him, even though they personally didn't like him. But he shined a spotlight on these issues. And it really, circling back here to the one thing Tucker said about Frank Luntz that everybody should know and understand. For years, Frank Luntz has been pushing the views of his clients, many corporate, if not just political elitists, right? Pushing the views of his clients and dressing them up as legitimate research, right? So Republicans, turns out Trump voters really do support amnesty. Well, I mean, that is a bought and paid for opinion. And years back, by the way, he ridicules anybody who doesn't take the vaccine. Like Tucker said, guess who his client is? Pfizer. All right. And who is his former client? Which was, and this gets back to a big issue Donald Trump made in 2016 that he left on the table this time, opiate addiction. Frank Luntz used to have Purdue Pharma as his client. And years ago, if you would rewind the tape, you would see Frank Luntz running all over the place talking about how OxyContin is safe. Meanwhile, his friends in the Bushes and the Bidens and the rest of them, and the Clintons even, because Hillary Clinton voted for that war, are running all over the Middle East and Afghanistan and Iraq, more than quadrupling. I mean, when we got into Afghanistan, it was 180 metric tons of opium exported from that country every year. It is now, or 2 years ago, it was 9,000. That fell a little bit to just under 7,000. So while Frank is telling everybody to take a drug that hooks them on opiates, his political friends are making the conditions so that we can pack this country with cheap heroin. That's dangerous. Cheap and potent heroin. So after Purdue Pharma gets you hooked on a $30 Roxy, right? Then you can run to the street guy and get a $5 bag of heroin, all brought to you by Frank Luntz and company and his friends. And that is what their contribution to this society has been. And he dressed those views up as if there was like something behind them, like empirical evidence behind it. They're bought and paid for, Robert. That is the biggest thing everybody should take away from what Tucker was trying to tell his viewers, which is that even his own channel, by the way, used to put this man on TV and talk like he's an expert in something. He ran a focus group. He did this, he did that. Focus groups, like Tucker said, it depends, they're very easy to do incorrectly. Like you noted, they're very expensive. So Frank is eating good, folks. Believe you me. All right. He's got enough to put together a fake Oval Office in his own house. He's eating good. Focus groups are very expensive. And based on how you design them and how you conduct them, forget about polling being manipulated. A focus group could be manipulated. You could steer direction, which if you're somebody like me and you used to watch Frank on Fox do that, he is manipulating the conversation. Absolutely. And those are not even views that he wants to push. That's not even him doing it for his own personal ideology. It's him doing it for money, for his clients.
Exactly. It's a bifurcated level of corruption. One part of the corruption is just the professional class as a class projecting their own political preferences and prejudices onto the broader public, pretending that the broader public believes a bunch of things that they simply don't believe because it's what they believe. So it's sort of a different form of confession through projection, pretending the world shares their opinions. The second level of corruption is just direct corruption, corporate money buying off these opinions to fool and deceive elected officials into believing that something is popular that's not. The way Trump got around that was he didn't use almost any pollster in 2016 at all until late. What he did is he used as a substitute popular talk radio hosts, popular YouTube channels, popular social media populist type individuals. That's what he did. He used that as his substitute for public opinion, and that's how he was able to keep his finger on the pulse, unlike, frankly, now at times when he's doing things like lecturing people that are anti-vaccine as being sort of conspiracy kooks, not recognizing a lot of those people are his own audience. I mean, this is what happens when you're too locked up and you don't have your finger on that pulse anymore, and you have Frank Luntz types are very much in Trump's circle. And as an example on focus groups, in the Snipes trial leading up to it, there was a lawyer who wanted to get more involved in the case. So she started manipulating the focus groups because she was responsible for some, I was responsible for others. And she was getting them to vote a high rate of acquittal based on her manipulation of the focus group, how she framed things, how she phrased it, unrealistic previewing and predicting, hoping that the client would say, wow, look at how she's getting these great results. Maybe she should have a lead role in the trial. And there's so many ways to do that. You want to recreate reality as best as possible in order to get, and first you have to have a scientific group to get a focus group in the first place. Make sure it's
in the
done.
first place. Right.
That's critical. But your Luntz types don't worry about that as much. Your Luntz types know how they can work the room inside the room and manufacture opinions to reflect whatever he wants them to be. And that's not hard to do in a range of contexts if you know how to do it. And so, I mean, that's the other area where he corrupts things. But Frank Luntz is a symbol. I mean, Tucker's takedown of Frank was fantastic because he's a perfect epitome. Now, a guy who promoted him a lot over the years, Sean Hannity. And now they're back to pumping up Pompeo. Like Pompeo is going to be the substitute replacement for Trump. I mean, Pompeo is a guy of very sketchy consistency. I mean, he's a guy who often likes war and conflict, has a lot of neocon tendencies built in, did nothing to clean up the CIA while he was there, did nothing to clean up the State Department while he was there. He publicly stood by Trump, but that's all you can really say for him. I mean,
so did Nikki Haley when she was serving under him anyway.
Exactly.
So did Nikki Haley.
Is the fact that Fox is backing him is a warning sign that he's not someone to be trusted. I have problems with him because of his orchestration of the prosecution of Julian Assange. And so and the fact that he didn't clean up any of the deep state operators. It was his State Department people that helped set up and create the problems for the second impeachment. So this Trump loyalty stuff, I'm like, it was more a Nikki Haley style, say the right thing until you leave. And now he's going to say all the right things because Fox is going to promote him as the macho replacement to Trump, the macho successor to Trump. There's no evidence that he fits that bill at all. In that
minus Tucker, Robert, you can't listen to it. Look, viewers, minus Tucker, you can't listen to anything Fox News said. They haven't. It says
Sean
they
Hannity
are
helped
off the
promote
rails.
Frank Luntz for a decade.
Absolutely. And that has been something we have been saying for a long time, right? So you don't like how, I'm not even going to say the Slimer's name, but you don't like fake, election forecasters whose job it is to set a narrative. Then why would Sean Hannity be promoting them and talking about them constantly? You don't like people like Frank Luntz, who are friends with Hunter Biden on the side. And Paul, this guy is, for everyone who doesn't know, this guy's buddy with the Bidens, has known Joe Biden for years. They're very, very friendly. Paul Ryan's right-hand man. In 2016, they're in the green room at Fox News. The exit polls come in, and it's a wipeout. It shows it's a wipeout. And I mean a Trump loss, a complete and total wipe. Frank goes to Twitter. He sets off everybody in a panic because they all start to call me. I thought you said Florida was going to Trump because it didn't look good. And he goes to Twitter and he says, Florida is going to Hillary Clinton, and then follows it up with, if I wasn't clear, Hillary Clinton is the next president, right? You remember that tweet? And then it set off a panic in our it set off a panic over on our side because they're like, are we just not a panic, but people are calling me like, are you not crunching something correctly? And I'm like, no, I'm right. He is wrong. Give it time. But he's in the green room on the phone with Paul Ryan, Robert. Sir, I will help you rebuild this party. Don't worry. We will do it together. And we can make this a party that everybody can be proud of again. And this is the message Fox is set to run him with until it looks like, you know what? This may not go as the exit polls are saying it's going to go. And then the whole night, it was like a half an hour where everything began, like one picture in Florida began to muddy, right? And then, the panhandle's not even in yet. And this looks like this, it's a little bit closer in Hillsborough. It's a little bit closer in Pinellas. I don't know how it could be right if that's the case. And then it just started. But they were set to run that narrative all night long, Robert, that the Republican Party should take this loss to heart, that it should realize that it needs a new character. It should abandon the Trump message and move back to the Frank Luntz and Paul Ryan. They were dying to do this. So it really, people should remember that for 4 years, the Foxes and the money behind the Foxes and the Franks have been dying to push this crap again, to push it again.
Yes.
They had wanted an I told you so bad.
And they got so scared by what happened in December and January in their ratings that they backed off going where they planned on going, but they're still halfway there. They got 1 foot. They got Tucker Carlson and often Greg Gutfeld, who are willing to be as sort of the more populist or more critical types of the establishment. And then, Sean Hannity's always been kind of an establishment guy, but he's returned more to those roots. Laura Ingraham, unfortunately, has returned a lot more to those establishment roots. Even though she's establishment in that she was a Supreme Court clerk. Then when she went to talk radio, became a very big populist voice, but she's receded from a lot from that since the election, as far as I can tell. Kind of useless to tune into. She used to be a really interesting voice to listen to, and now it's like, man, whatever.
It's just like kind of like regurgitation of stuff you would hear anywhere else, plus thrown in there with I don't even know what to call it, Robert. It's like the soft toe walking, where you say these things like you look like you're walking really soft. Yeah, you're like tiptoeing. I don't know what to say, but the dumb kind of comments like 99%. Here's a good example. 99.9% of all Muslims are good people or nonviolent or something. Like she's returning to those kinds of like caveat statements. I don't.
Yes.
I just exactly. Not worth the hour to me.
They're trying to be sort of soft pedaling. When Fox put Paul Ryan on their board, you knew where they really wanted to go. The problem they have is that they saw that their ratings collapse overnight, had to rebuild, and then the only reason why, in part, they were able to even rebuild, aside from Tucker, is the fact that Trump didn't monetize his brand with any other network because he's still doing what in his own world kind of thing, and so Trump really helped save Fox. ironically, even though Fox did a lot of damage to him down the stretch, particularly during the election contest stage of the case.
Yeah, by a lack of action, he helped them recover some of what they would have continued to bleed if he would have put his name or put his stamp next to something else.
If Trump goes over, if somebody else goes over to...
Yeah, they're helping them.
Instead Laura Trump's at Fox. Trump's doing most of his interviews at Fox. So we'll see. Now, of course, we'll find out next week or maybe later this week whether the gods of Facebook will allow Trump to return. I hope they don't, because I want Trump to not be able to go back into that world, not continue to monetize that world, go into a different world, and it will remind everybody where Facebook is. But it is scary that Facebook even has such power in the first place. That they get.
God bless Ron DeSantis. That's a way to let me sneak this in here real quick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, while everybody else, or not everybody, but elected, I would say, while most elected Republicans are playing defense, this guy is on the offense. Robert, this is a bill that
and on all the hot
bill
topics,
does.
Hitting one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, whether it's riot legislation, whether it's now big tech legislation, whether it's the vaccine issues. He came in and said no more local governments can't do anything anymore. Florida is now the full free state of Florida. So I guess you moved out of Florida at the wrong time. But
I know. I told Laura, I said, we're going to go get a summer house or something. Like I'm always back there anyway. So, right. I mean, I love it. I'm so proud of them. I am so proud of them. And now I gotta remain here though. I gotta tell you for a bit, because I could see they're gonna need my help. I could see with this apple plant in Wake County, that is as much of a political decision as it is an economic or business decision. We talk about this all the time, but Republicans are like completely in the dark on what is, and it's really an economic warfare that is for political benefit. And Republicans are like stupid. And they don't realize, that you could create an economy that creates communities, that creates voters for your party. Don't you understand that? They don't get this, And meanwhile, Tim Cook's like, just import another 20,000, into North Carolina, and they're, with families and stuff. And the starting salary is 100 and something thousand or something. It's going to be over there. Those are Democratic voters. They will be. Hi folks, Rich Baris, the People's Pundit, host of Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and co-host of What Are the Odds with Barnes and Baris. If you liked what the New York Post called above average transparency, then go ahead and like the page, share the videos, and hit that notification bell. It'll let you know when we're going to go live.